In today's video, I really wanted to take a bit of time to talk about self-help and more specifically, the dark side of self-help, which I think isn't talked about enough, okay? Because the question becomes, what if too much self-help is actually hurting you? And what if your self-awareness is actually turning into self-criticism? Because I firmly believe that sometimes that self-awareness can actually be a double-edged sword. And when you start to understand too much about yourself and you're not sure how to integrate that, you can become very self-critical and very shameful towards yourself, which is exactly what's happened to me in my own life and other people that I've had the honor of discussing this topic with, which is really what inspired me to really talk about this today. And I wanted to start this off by sharing my own story and talking a bit about this. Now, I've shared my own story on the podcast many times. I'm not going to go over all that again, but basically a quick summary is that a few years ago, I was in a very dark place. I didn't know how to get out, but I knew something needed to change. I knew that I could not keep living the same way that I was living, right? So basically, with that being said, I debated therapy, coaching, all these different things, but I couldn't get myself to be vulnerable with someone. I couldn't open up. I didn't feel safe opening it up to someone because I was afraid of being judged, and I was just afraid of being seen as someone who's broken, who's got all these issues type of thing, right? So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start this soul searching journey on my own, and I'm going to see where that takes me. And initially, that was a beautiful thing. It was so fun. I was just starting to understand more about myself. I literally started this with Myers-Briggs personality tests, right? They're cool little tests, and I started doing like enneagrams and all these different things just to dive into that a bit, just literally to understand a bit more about myself and seeing what these personality tests had to offer. And then I found that really cool. So I was like, okay, nice. I like this. I'm really enjoying this. And this is really resonating with me. What else can I start diving into? So that's when I started buying books and listening to podcasts and YouTube channels, right? And all these different things. But that's when I noticed that I became very self-aware, right? I became extremely self-aware to the point that I became very self-critical because now I had an understanding of all the issues that I needed to work through, right? And I was like, okay, I've got all these things that I need to work through, but like, what is wrong with me? Like, so basically for me, I thought something was wrong with me, right? And I thought, how is it possible that I've got all these different things to work through? And then you're listening to a bunch of different things, and then you feel like you see yourself in so many different things, which then for me personally, anyways, from my own subjective experience, just reinforced that belief that something was actually wrong with me, right? And then that, honestly, for me personally, what it did is it pushed me to consume even more information, right? More information. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to need to learn more about this, learn more about that, do more about this, try to fix this in a certain way. And fix was a big word in my vocabulary at that time because I didn't know how to approach myself with curiosity and compassion and just being like, hey, you are doing this because you want to lead a better quality of life. You want to be doing this because you want to stop unconsciously bleeding on other people. You want to be doing this because you want to understand your attachment, right? All these different things. It's not because you're a project that needs to be fixed or that you're broken. You just want to lead a better quality of life. But at that point in time, I didn't understand that concept, right? So basically my inner critic went wild. I just went down into a shameful spiral, if you will, right? And again, this is what I'm saying. And for me, at a certain point, even self-help became avoidance because I thought, okay, the more I read, the more I listen, the more whatever, this is going to help me understand more and possibly fix myself. But the practice is in the book and all these different things I wasn't even applying, right? Because guess what? Now I had all this self-awareness about me, and it was scary to look at because now it's like, oh my goodness, I've got all these issues that I need to face. I've got all these things that I need to look at. I don't even know where to start. I got completely just overwhelmed, which led me to actually avoid doing any work at all, right? And I remember I was reading books and there were exercises like pause, do this exercise, right? I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do it later. Yeah, got to know more about this first before I do it. Got to listen to this more before I do it. I wasn't applying anything. I wasn't doing anything, right? Because I became so self-aware that I understood so much about myself, and I understood that facing those parts of myself were so scary that I was like, you know what? I'm going to intellectually just get over this, right? I'm not going to learn how to feel. I'm not going to learn how to process anything. I'm just going to intellectualize everything and learn how to get through that, right? So this is why I'm saying, yes, self-help can be a great thing. Doing the inner work can be a great thing. But sometimes I think what can happen is we we start to approach this journey and then we start to think something's wrong with me because we've got different things that we need to work on, right? But you're not broken and you don't need to fix yourself. I want anyone to who's using the word fix to remove that out of their vocabulary entirely, because it doesn't belong there, right? And I just want to make sure that if you are doing the self-help and you are reading the books and all these different things, it's not just a form of avoidance, it's not just a form of distraction, and that you're actually applying things that are, things that the teachings from the books and all these different things, right? And yes, I'm a big firm believer that everyone's got different modalities that we need to try and learn and all these different things. But again, it comes down to applying and investigating yourself, right? Looking at the parts of yourself that you don't want to look at, but with curiosity and compassion towards yourself. And again, I'm reinforcing this, but saying, hey, listen, there's some things here that obviously are surfacing in me. There's some things that I definitely need to look at, right? Because maybe I've hurt someone, maybe, this part of me that I hadn't healed yet is bleeding on other people. Maybe I'm just depressed, as an example, and I don't want to keep living this way. So I need to really deal with the underlying cause, right? Maybe I'm procrastinating, but it's actually not because I'm lazy. It's actually because I'm so overwhelmed. I'm so overwhelmed by whatever's going on in my life, as an example, right? Maybe there's a task that you need to do that you don't know how to do, and then that's overwhelming for you. There are so many different reasons why you can be procrastinating. But what I'm trying to say here is procrastination is not always a byproduct of being lazy, as an example, right? Like procrastination and laziness are two different things entirely. And I think procrastination sometimes is your nervous system trying to tell you something, right? Especially if you're constantly procrastinating. But again, one thing to remember as well is that self-help is a billion-dollar industry, right? There are good intentions within self-help. I have no doubts there at all, but there will always be something self-help that you can take. Take this weekend course to become certified. Take this weekend course to heal your trauma. Take this, right? There's so many different things. And if you're anything like me, you like the little clickbait titles and all these different things. And being fully honest, I've spent way too much money on courses and such because I thought it would fix me or heal me or all these different things. But even when I dove into those courses, it was more information that kept me stuck. That's what I'm trying to say with all this thing, right? Or this video here is all this information, you can acquire all this information, but if you're not approaching it correctly and with a sense of curiosity, compassion, and truly wanting to better yourself, you're just going to get stuck. And I think personally, this is where self-help can go really wrong, okay? It's where we're over-consuming, we're learning, but we're not applying anything, as an example, right? Or we're just using it as a form of avoidance. Or as an example, we're always trying to become your best self, as an example, right? But in my personal opinion, I think the self-discovery journey is something that's, that we're doing for a lifetime. Because like for me, for example, I turned 30 in October. If I'm being completely honest with myself, I've probably learned more in my few months of being 30 than I have in a few years of my life. So that's what I'm saying, right? We're always evolving. We're always working towards becoming our best selves, right? And I think there's no final destination here, right? There's no like, okay, once I do this, I am fully healed. This is what I thought for a long time. Once I do this, I am fully healed. I'm done, all these different things. No, because life will always keep presenting you with things that you have not faced yet, right? If, as an example, you've never lost someone in your family, and I hope it never happens to you, obviously, but the reality of life is death is inevitable for everyone, right? But if you've never gone through that, at a certain point in your life, you will have to go through that, and that will demand something of you that you have not yet gone through, right? So to me, the best self is something that's evolutionary over your lifetime, right? And also, for me personally, what ended up happening as well is obviously the shame, the inner critic, all these different things, right? I thought all these different things were wrong with me. I wasn't healing properly. And also, I began comparing myself to other people, okay? Because then I was looking at other people, they seem to be healed, they seem to try things that work for them, and sometimes I would try those things and it wasn't working for me and all these different things, and then I became self-critical. It's like, I know all these things, I'm trying my best here, and then I'm just not healing as fast as other people type of thing. And then I would compare myself to other people, right? I would just compare myself to other people, which led me to a spiral of avoidance and just not dealing with my stuff because I thought I was broken and I thought I would never actually get through anything, right? So this is what I'm saying. This is why I think it's so important to talk about this dark side of self-help, because I think for a lot of people, this can happen, right? This can actually happen. If it's happened to me and it's happened to other people that I've talked to, it can definitely happen to other people as well, right? This is what I noticed as well in my own journey, if you will, is that healing takes time, right? When you're working through stuff, it takes time. If you're in your 40s and you're only starting to work on your trauma that you've had, like your childhood trauma, for example, which, kudos to you if you are, you're not just going to get over that in 2 weeks, right? Like, this is what I'm trying to say. That's not realistic at all. Okay. If your nervous system, if your body's been adapted to a certain way your entire life and you're only starting to work in that in your 40s, there's no way. There's no way. The body remembers, right? There's no way 2 weeks is going to be more than enough to heal all these different things. It's going to take time, months, potentially years, if I'm being completely honest. The same thing as an example, if you're breaking up with someone you've been with for 5 years, if all of a sudden you break up with someone or someone breaks up with you and you've been with them for 5 years and you expect to get over that in 2 weeks, it's impossible. It's impossible, right? You have to grieve the relationship. You have to grieve what you've lost, maybe the sense of identity that you had with that person. But not only are you grieving the life that you once had, but you're also going to be grieving the life that you wanted, the life that you anticipating having with them, the dreams, right? All these different things. There are so many different layers that come into that, right? So this is what I'm saying. Please give yourself some compassion, give yourself some space, whatever it is that you're going through. I can promise you that, with the work and doing the inner work and facing yourself, facing the parts of you that you don't want to face, right? Facing your shadow, right, is very difficult. But I can promise you that if you do it with curiosity and compassion, right, and a good level of self-awareness that doesn't turn into self-criticism, I can promise you that you're going to be leaps ahead of people like me, as an example, right, who started and really, didn't really have that guidance. And this is really my key takeaway from this message today is first and foremost, obviously, is, if you're starting this and you're not sure where to begin, all these different things, please work with a coach, please work with a therapist, someone that can guide you, I think is very beneficial, right? This is what I love to help clients with as well. But also, if you're a little bit like me and you want to dive into this on your own for a little bit, which is also okay, right? As long as you feel safe to do so, then please start with this, right? I'm going to approach this with curiosity. I want to get to know myself because I want a better life for myself, right? I'm not doing this to attack myself. I'm not doing this to get more shame, to enroll myself in toxic shame, and I'm not doing this to hurt myself, right? Yes, it's going to be hard, but that is the whole point. That is the point, right? Facing those parts is very difficult, right? And there's a beautiful quote that I read. I don't know who the author is, but I found this on Instagram, and it says, "Just like the moon, you are whole, no matter what phase you are in," right? And to me, that kind of just flicks something. For me, I love little quotes like that. I think sometimes it can give you a different perspective on things. But for me, it's like, you know what? I just need to learn how to accept myself. And I need to accept myself as I am right now, because I know that where I am right now is not where I'm going to be in 2 years, but where I am right now is where I need to be so that I can work on what's coming, right? And I can work on what I want to be achieving in my life. And I can work on these things right now so that I can lead and live a better quality of life, right? So to me, I was like, okay, this is just the phase that I'm in right now. And that's completely okay. Now let's get to work. Let's take the action, obviously, because we need to take action. I'm a firm believer in that, right? Don't do like me, just read, intellectualize, not apply anything. You're missing the entire point if you are, but this is why I'm also talking about this today as well, right? So really, this is something else that I really wanted to kind of talk about. And for me personally, what's really helped me is kind of the analogy of a video game, right? Because for me personally, I've always loved video games and also kind of the message that it has behind it, right? But in terms of a video game and even with your healing journey, okay, as you progress on your hero's journey, okay, you will have monsters that you need to fight. You will have bosses, very strong monsters that you need to fight. You will get frustrated. You will get angry. You will get sad. You will want to quit over and over again, depending on the video game that you're playing. Trust me, I've been there many times in my life, right? But you don't. You get back up and you try again and you try again and you try again. And that's the same thing. And if something doesn't work, you try something else, right? If you've been with a therapist and it's not working for you, don't quit on your healing journey. I've had people honestly tell me this. It's like, I've tried therapy, doesn't work. I'm just, I'll figure it out. It's like, okay, maybe with that therapist, it didn't work, but why would you quit? Right? Why would you quit? Try something else. Maybe another therapist will hold better space with you. Maybe you need to try a different modality, a different type of coaching, right? It's not because you're broken. There's nothing about that at all. You're not broken at all, right? We've been born on this world whole. A baby is perfect as it is, but then through programming and trauma and all these different things, we kind of go through life, right? Depending on the programming that we have. But the software that was installed can actually be uninstalled like a computer, right? We can override that software. We can uninstall and install new one, right? Takes time, but we can definitely get there, right? So I really hope that this video can kind of help you understand the perspective that I'm really trying to say today, is that if you're finding yourself being very critical, very self-critical, and your self-awareness is turning into that self-criticism, right? I just want you to remember a few things. Number one is try to incorporate a bit of self-acceptance into your life as you're going through this, right? And trust me, I know it's difficult. I'm not just saying, be more self-accepting. I know that's hard, right? But I think as you give yourself a little bit more compassion and you really look at yourself from the place that you are right now, and you're saying to yourself, listen, I'm doing this right now because I want to get to that other phase of my life, right? And like the moon, like we just said, right? No matter what phase you are in, you are whole as you are right now, right? You're not broken. You can be a masterpiece and a work in progress all at the same time, right? So that's one thing I want to share as well. Also, please remember to celebrate your wins, no matter how small. I think this is so important. A lot of us don't take time to celebrate anything. I know I didn't for a long time, right? If you've been depressed for a long time and now one day you wake up, you get out of bed, you go do something, you go do groceries, and you haven't been able to get out of bed all week, that is a milestone. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, that is a milestone. That is not just a small win. That is a major win. And you need to celebrate that however you want to celebrate that. Maybe you make yourself a cup of coffee. Maybe you pour yourself a nice bath. Maybe you watch an episode that, something to cheer you up, or something to, really embody, like, hey, I'm proud of myself for having done that, right? Especially if you've been, again, in your bed all week and haven't been able to do anything because you've just been feeling really depressed, very lethargic, all these different things, right? So please celebrate the wins. Also, I think there really needs to be a balance in your life, right? Between doing and being. And sometimes, yes, it's important to want to do the inner work and all these different things, but sometimes I think we can just get caught up so much into healing and all these different things that we think we have to read, we have to do all this work, all these different things. But like, sometimes healing is just sitting down and doing nothing and allowing ourselves to rest, right? Sometimes healing is simply just going to see friends and being with people and communicating with people and just being surrounded by the ones that you love and the ones that you need to spend time with, right? Sometimes it's literally just allowing yourself, for me personally, is just like sit in a warm shower and just lay there, right? And just absolutely do nothing. Just allow yourself to just be there and do nothing, right? I think that is so healing for me personally, right? Sometimes during the summer, I'll go outside, right? Sit in my deck. I bring nothing with me, nothing at all, no distractions other than myself and just the presence and nature and all these different things. I just sit there. Sometimes I sit there for like 45 minutes, to be quite honest with you. And I just sit there. And to me, that is profoundly healing. So it's not always about doing. Sometimes it's just about being, right? Which is the last thing I wanted to share in that perspective. But I want to leave you with 3 questions that you can reflect on as you finish this video. Number one is, am I applying what I learned, right? Are you actually applying what you learn? This is what we talked about earlier in the video. Second, am I growing or just avoiding discomfort? And the third one is, can I pause and acknowledge how far I've come? Because sometimes I think we're so busy trying to chase the next milestone, whatever that may be, that we actually forget to, again, celebrate the small wins and celebrate all that we've done and all that we've been doing and how far we've come since we first started. So that's really what I wanted to dive into today's video. And I really hope that this can help anyone that is going through this kind of transition or going through this journey or whatever it is that you're working on, and you're being very self-aware, very self-critical as an example. And maybe it's something that you needed to listen to or have a different perspective on. So I do hope that this can help, and I hope you have a great day.